Josh. This is my channel, Newtons per second. How's everyone doing? Today I am going to talk about the Jupiter 3 project again. And I did a launch with the METRA Rocket Club in New York, September 2nd. I released the launch video already, and I kind of wanted to go over a little, this is like a quick review, post-flight review of what went on with that flight. I added extra weight in the nose cone. I put a video of how I did that. And on the busy end, I did ramp up the power quite a bit. It was Jupiter's probably it was the most powerful flight I've ever done with it. That was on a Cesaroni L995R red lightning motor, about 3,600 newtons and some change there. So that flight was awesome. A lot of firsts, well not first for me, but things I haven't done in a while. Building that motor was a little easier than the Aerotech kits. And the up part went right. It looked great. Took me by surprise how high it did go. Their waiver is 4,500 feet, and this pretty much was 4,500 feet flat on the altitude. The Missile Works altimeter, RRC3, reported, I think, 400 miles an hour going up. So, for a 38-pound rocket, this thing was moving out. And a few things I want to talk about, and there was concerns. I had modified my nose cone, and I'll get into that. And there was concerns about me chopping off the base end of the nose cone and epoxying a plywood bulk plate in there. And I added a whole payload section. The concerns were that could rip out. And I didn't know, there's another YouTuber, John, I might mess his name up, Crocker. If I mess it up, sorry. Using the ring or the inside of the shoulder to kind of lock in the bulk plate. But it's plastic and there's always risks. I did give another YouTuber a plug. I think it was Path Touch. He made a comment on the nose cone build I did, adding the extra weight. He said you might want to countersink some screws in there just in case. He did the same thing I did, and he didn't have as much luck just on a ground test with the lock nose with the plywood bulk plate in there. He ended up ripping the bulk plate out. The adhesive with the epoxy didn't stick. I used BSI's 15-minute epoxy, which is, from my understanding, that's a good epoxy for fiberglass. It's flexible, and I did clean the inside of the nose cone with alcohol, sanded it down to give some bite, and I took his advice. I did countersink some screws in. I actually put some dowels in there too. So that all worked good. So getting back to the up part, that was awesome. Flew straight. This was the straightest this thing has ever flown, and I think it finally had enough power to keep this thing, just straight as an arrow. I think all the other motors, even the L1000, struggled until this thing got up to speed. It kind of did the little wave, and then it was straight. So this thing needs a lot of punch off the pad to get it going straight and true. So at apogee, because I'll go back to the whole nose cone thing, I added 2 pounds of clay into the nose cone, and I was worried about having enough black powder charge to push everything out. So instead of using 4 grams of black powder that I've done on the previous flights that worked fine, I upped it to about 5.5 grams and then 6 grams on backup. Well, this thing separated so violently, it was full extension. And one thing I wasn't thinking about is now you've got that energy separating out. You got extra weight in a nose cone, and when it locked out, it broke all 3 440 shear pins on the nose cone attached to the upper frame. Broke those, and now you've got 8-foot main, and my backup, I think I had a 5-foot elliptical out at apogee at 4,500 feet. So that was less than ideal, and now you got thoughts in your head, am I going to get this rocket back? But the New York site with METRA is a beautiful place. There is sod and I think it's soybeans. It's just like almost like a couple miles of it. There are some tree lines that they put in, I guess, to windbreak so the wind doesn't erode the property. So this ended up falling behind two of those, kind of like those tree lines, and ended up finding the rocket. My wife and I walked for about 35 minutes through all sorts of stuff, and we got to the rocket. So I'll kind of break down a little more of what happened with the flight, and I'll show you again the nose cone setup and things I did with that. So looking at the rocket a little bit closer, at apogee, the altimeters in here are firing the charges to separate the upper body and the nose cone. So the extra weight that I added in here, with the rocket coming out, or the upper body coming out this way, and once it fully extended the shock cord with the extra black powder charges I have 3 shear pins up top here holding the nose cone in. And that force broke all 3 of the shear pins. And then that resulted in the nose cone coming out, bringing out the parachutes and everything, and which resulted in the 30 plus minute walk. We're just fortunate that this rocket landed in a little sod field in between some of those tree lines I was talking about. Here's a look on the back end of it, and you can see here I countersunk some screws in there so it doesn't interfere with the upper body, allowing to release the nose cone. And somewhere in here I backed up, like right here, that's a dowel. So just drill the hole. And all these are filled. I put Titebond on the screws too and set them in. You just gotta be really careful when you drill it into the bulk plate. You're going right in the middle so you don't split that apart. This is like 3/8 or 1/2 inch bulk plate, so it's plenty thick enough. I wasn't worried about splitting it too much. And then in here, this is all 15 minute epoxy, stainless steel U-bolts, and here's the lid for the payload section. And we'll just unscrew this real quick and I can show you guys a little better what I'm talking about. All right. So there's the payload section, and that goes in pretty much to about the tip. There is a bulk plate in there to stop anything I put in from traveling all the way to the tip and potentially getting stuck. Here's 2 pounds of clay. I have it in the bag so it doesn't dry out, and if the clay dries out, you lose the weight. So that just basically slides in there. Probably kind of see it in there, maybe not. And then I built this coupler, and here's again a little bulk plate, and that's to help hold the weight in place. And that just sits in really nice. And then you just put this back on, bolt it back up, and done. And that's how I have it secured. And the idea is to weigh this rocket down enough so it was going to stay under the waiver. As is, it was pretty close. It simmed at like 4,400 feet, and I'm like, that's not enough wiggle room in case this thing really takes off on me, which even with the extra weight, it still did. And here's another closer look of the Cesaroni 3-grain 75mm casing. And there is a lot of nice L motors for this. The 2-grain version has a pretty good selection of K motors, and they're ranging like almost like 2,000 newtons. So they're a 2-grain line for 75mm. They're pretty healthy case. Yeah, I'm super happy with this motor. This thing had a nice mean sound going up. At the end of this video, I'll have a link going to the original flight with the L995 with this rocket. I also add that to the end of this video too. Okay, that wraps up the quick post-flight review of the Jupiter 3. Again, I appreciate everyone watching these videos. I love sharing the high-power rocket experience with everyone. Hit the subscribe button if you enjoy them, and I look forward to putting another video out and, again, sharing all this with you guys. See you next video. Thanks again.
Jupiter 3, black and yellow, big rocket out there, 7.5 inches, diameter 94 inches long. He's going 4,100 feet on a CTI L995 red. This is his first 75 millimeter motor. Oh, by the way, MissileWorks RSC3, MissileWorks RSC2 Plus, mains at 400, backup at mains at 500, backup at 400. It's got a 8-foot chute, a 5-foot chute, and a 24-inch drogue. 38.7 pounds. Let's see if it's got a chance to work all the way. Skies look blue. All right, good luck, Josh. In 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, ignition.
So basically it's actually sealing.
Wow.
Okay, thank you.